Welcome to another Anatomical Gangster. I am your host, Sue Hitzman. Today, I had the opportunity to talk to Garnet Dupuis, a visionary in brain wellness technology, and he is the creator behind the NeuroVIZR, which I happen to have. It's a platform that leverages light and sound to enhance neuroplasticity and mental well-being. He's got a really innovative approach combining ancient wisdom with cutting-edge science to support mental health, maximize brain adaptability, and of course, improve our overall longevity. So right up my alley to talk to someone like this. If you're interested in psychedelics or any of the broader health trends shaping society today, I think you're going to love this conversation. Make sure if you do, you subscribe to the channel by clicking that subscribe button below. Share this one with your friends. And of course, keep your eye open for more conversations on the channel. I hope that you enjoy this conversation as much as I did with the amazing Garnet Dupuis. Enjoy. So Garnet, thank you so much for coming on Anatomical Gangster. If ever I've met one, you are it. You are the Anatomical Gangster for sure.
All right, let's stop there because it's all downhill after that. I'm going to sip my morning coffee. It's
perfect.
8:30 in the morning here in northern Thailand.
Yes,
Shanghai.
and 8:30 here in Naples, Florida, p.m. So we are exactly on the opposite sides of the earth here. So
I got to tell you, by the way, because we're 12 hours ahead, or you could say in the future,
yes.
If you ever want to know what's happening, give me a call and I'll give you a 12-hour lead.
I love that. I love that. It is kind of mind-blowing. I remember learning about that, that China was so far ahead of us. And I was like, wow, they're already in tomorrow. Like, they must be so smart because they're in the future. And my dad used to be like, well, that's not exactly how it works. So I'm like, it kind of is. It kind of is true.
You just reminded me of a childhood premise of mine. I don't know if you grew up with it. I did in Canada, that if you dug a hole straight down, you'd come out in China. So I tried it a few times, couldn't get very far, but yeah, here we are. So spin the planet. Come on, Sue, let's go.
I love that. Well, Garnet, I want to tell everybody. So we're going to be talking about not only this, but more, I'm sure. But I was at the Sages and Scientists conference this summer with Deepak Chopra. And in the middle of one of the sessions, after things, I always take a lot of notes. And this gentleman, Billy, walks by me and he kind of commented that I was working. And I said, I'm always working. And then
Billy Meyer.
Yeah. And then 10 minutes later, I walked past him and he's sitting there with this thing on his head. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he told me a little bit, he said, this is a NeuroVIZR. I was like, tell me more. And he goes, well, I can't exactly explain it, but have you ever had a psychedelic experience? I said, sure. And he goes, well, it's kind of like, do you want to try it? And I said, yes. And I did one of the 11-minute sets. I think it was one of the ones for boosting, and I heard your voice and on we went. And I came out of it and I thought, I definitely have to have one of these and try every single set that you have. So I've had it for a few months and I use it sometimes in the daytime to help boost me up. Sometimes I use it before I go to sleep. I love some of the ones for brain work. And again, like for all of you guys, we'll have to talk about this awesome app. He's got some for meditation, mindsets, neuroathletics, better sleep, brain gym, and of course, one called microdosing. So one could also imply right there what we're going to talk about. But I want you to share a little bit because I know that your background is in everything from massage, you have therapy, body work, hydrotherapy, oriental medicine, and clearly technology. So I am just curious, what is the story behind how you got here and what on earth, what was the moment where you were like, I'm going to create a thing. I got an idea about creating light and changing people's brains. How on earth does one come to this place to develop a tool like this?
Okay, Sue, which version of the story would you like?
Well, I know that you grew up on a farm, so you're clearly a
Yeah,
strong human.
a relentless appetite for the divine,
Mhm.
you know? I mean, to be succinct and also attempting to be honest without making it romantic or dramatic. Uh, yeah, I can never remember a time when I wasn't magnetized towards the fact that there's some kind of special or extraordinary quality to life.
Mhm.
Somehow the sacred and the mundane are woven together. And I want more of that. And after a while, I wanted to see if I could help other people have more of that.
Mhm.
So without sounding too grandiose, it would really have been more of a decision to not follow the path than follow the path. I'll call it a path, very Taoist. But so like what's going on? Well, what's going on? What is this thing? And how can I get more of it? Has It's just like I don't know why. I assume we all feel the same thing, maybe in different ways.
Yeah,
But
some of
if you're
us.
gonna if you're gonna go to a movie, do you want to go to a shit movie, an average movie, or a great movie? Like, what's your choice, really?
Right. Right.
Well, um, assuming there is a choice, and it's elusive, but I do think there's a choice. So I'm like, unlike this shirt, I mentioned to Sue before we started recording that I was wearing a special shirt for her, and it's true.
It's so
I'm
awesome.
well, yeah. You see, it's all this anyway. But this is very much unlike me. I'm quite conservative by I think everybody's standards, and even my clothes. To me, I really like gray. It's a nice. I don't know. Everything looks good in gray, um, but there is this like, is life, weak analogy, is life gray or is life colorful?
Hmm.
And I believe it's both, and one doesn't cancel the other. I think that there is a lot of wisdom in, say, a Zen attitude, and yet there is also, a tantric attitude. That the blending, like right now. I mean, here we are. I'll do my best, along with you, to have an extraordinary time together.
Indeed.
I mean, why not? And can we? And if we can, how? So, um, okay. I mentioned that I was raised, or you mentioned it, in Canada. I'm also a naturalized US citizen. I've lived around the world. I'm living here in Thailand now for quite a while, 16, 17 years full time. And like how? I'll make it short because it could be long, but that uh, I was raised in the southern tip of an English province, but in a mixed French farming community, which was not very far from Windsor, which was right across the river from Detroit. So most of everything that I was not cool. The professionally, I call it, like, my environment was the three F's. Every man that I knew was either a farmer, a factory worker, or a fireman. And the fireman was the most professional of any of those others. So, okay, the point is sort of that I never really felt like I was part of the in crowd. So, I was the first in my family to go to university, late 60s, a little bit older than you. And, everything that people hear was pretty much true about what it
Mhm.
was. I mean, if you introduced LSD and birth control pills at the same time, along with great music, what do you
Yeah.
think is going to happen? What do you think? So, consequently, I I found myself, on the periphery, you could say, on the outside of a whole cultural experience that I didn't have access to. I didn't know any doctors or lawyers or anything like that.
Right.
So, like, who do you pattern your life after? Well, the first exposures of special people, because I was raised Roman Catholic, farming community, went to a school in the middle of the fields, next to the church, next to the convent, next to the rectory. I saw some people dressing differently, the nuns and the priests. And there's this church, which was unlike any kind of factory or barn. And from the earliest days, there was this sense of there's something going on here more than just daily life. There's something happening here, and there's evidence, because why are they all dressing like that? Why is that church? What's these rituals, and we would did the mass in Latin at the time.
So
There's
wait, you're
something
talking about when you're young, you're already asking these questions. Are you like, a teenager? You're saying when you're a kid, you're going, there's got to be more to it than this.
Well, it's my forever memory. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing. It's just always. It's the only reference I have that is constant.
Yeah,
Is
because I
there's
got kicked
something?
out of I got kicked out of religion class multiple times because I was like, wasn't Jesus a baby last year? And now he's making tables in Nazareth. Did he get into arguments with his dad? Did he go through puberty? Joseph wasn't his real father. They were like, you need to get out of this room. You're too influential. You go see the
Yeah.
priest. So I
Okay.
feel you
Well.
on that. I feel it. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, I was an altar boy. I thought I was going to be a priest until I met a monk, a friar, because there was no, there was no example other than that. When my friends were out doing what they do, quite comfortable in this. My mother, bought me, at the grocery store once a week an encyclopedia, and I lived in the encyclopedias. I would just run my hand up and down. My room, I had different sets of different. I'd run my hand up and
Me
down.
too.
Stop anywhere,
Yeah.
open anywhere, and read.
And
Right?
read. Me
Yeah.
too.
Okay.
That's what I had. I either had fairy tales or the Encyclopedia Britannica, and I
Bravo.
get grounded a lot. So I started on A and went to Z.
Oh, well, see, you're more methodical. I just went anywhere.
No, I didn't just open it up. I literally started at A. And I
Uh-huh.
remember, getting to maybe cells or maybe it was the nervous system and asking my dad, how come
Hmm.
there's so little on the nervous system? It seems so important. He's like, you ask weird questions. I don't have the answer
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're a classic weirdo. I
I'm
like
a
that.
weird. Yes. Thank you very much, Garnet.
That's
That
a
is
big
true.
compliment, right?
It's
So I'll
true.
skip everything. The point is that being on the outside,
Mm.
and I went too many stories. Anyway, things that seem to be on the outside, radionics, homeopathy, body work, Chinese medicine, all these things that are now inside the circle, getting attention, were mostly outside the circle throughout my life.
Hmm.
And it turns out that, for a while, I was a consultant for quite a progressive medical device team out of Dallas, Texas. And my job was to reconfigure methodologies from Russian into American style with these devices. And I don't know what my title was, but inside the company, they called me the weird shit consultant.
That's
So,
awesome.
right.
That's
So
awesome.
So it's been to me one unbroken, although modified, one unbroken stream of appetite and experiment and attempt that now is this NeuroVIZR device. But I really, I was in conversations 2 days ago with a wonderful woman in Bhutan. I've spent a good amount of time in Bhutan, and she is, believe it or not, an aerospace engineer for Bhutan. And I said jokingly, what, like with kites and prayer flags? I mean, aerospace in Bhutan, you don't
Right.
normally, but she specializes in satellites.
Wow.
Anyway, we were in conversations, and there's an aspiration to see if there is some way to integrate traditional spirituality with contemporary science. And not to repeat because of confidentiality, but that I said, I think you're making a mistake. The mistake is to start off with a premise that spirituality and science are different things.
Correct. Well said.
You
Well
know,
said.
Don't do that.
Right.
Just from the very beginning, assume that they are totally merged and indivisible. They're just two different ways of, touching the same elephant, to kind of mix messages here. The NeuroVIZR to me is a tool of sorts that allows you and me and others to explore, to drink, to practice, to grow in qualities of consciousness that are positive. I don't really think the NeuroVIZR is special. I think our brain is extraordinary. That to me is extraordinary.
That's what I mean. So for those of you because I asked this guy Billy exactly what it was, and he said I can't tell, but maybe you'll be able to figure it out. And I use it, and I try to explain to people kind of what it is or what I think it is, but I want to hear from the person who created this, because guys, when you listen to this, this is 9 little lights. This is all this is, 9 little lights, and your eyes are closed, so you're not seeing anything. If you ask me, there's no seeing involved because your eyes are closed, but it seems like if you just look at it when it's doing its strobe lighting, it just looks like white light. But when you close your eyes and you listen and you sink yourself into this, most of the sets are about 11 minutes, and except for the meditations are about 20. There's some that are even less, but there is this. I see sacred geometry. I feel like somebody is cleansing my eyes, wiping my eyes. I see trees. I feel like I see the sun coming in from the beach. I see, like when I was a kid, I used to love hanging my head out the window with my eyes closed and watching the light pass by the trees and feel like it was kissing my face. And so
nice image.
I see all of these things, and each song emits a different set of light patterns. So explain that to me. Explain it to everyone. What exactly is the NeuroVIZR, and what is the intent of what it is doing to the neural correlates in my mind?
Okay. Well, this should be fun. Let's see. It is a combination of both light and sound. And the sound is not music at this point. I call them soundscapes. And they are fully encoded audio brain signals in and of themselves. So when I develop a session, the first thing is, well, what do you think we can do here? What could it do? For one thing, I can't make your brain to do anything. I can create probability states. They're probability states. Let's say you and I wrote the script to a movie, and it's a comedy, and we get it produced. People go to the movie. We can't guarantee that they're all going to have an equally entertaining, funny experience. There's a probability, and that probability is higher and lower depending on the person. So every NeuroVIZR session has a sound element and a light element, and these are technically what's called a vector, a theme, a probability state. And we know enough about the behavior of the brain that we can help tell that story. Each session you could think of as a story. And that story is pre-verbal. It's a pre-verbal story. It's kind of a precognition story. It's what I call first language. Sound is mechanical vibration. Light is electromagnetic radiation. To me, it's the yin and yang of the first language.
That makes a lot of sense. I get that.
Yeah. So the soundscapes don't have fully composed music because our brain loves patterns and loves prediction. And there is enough musicality, what's technically called mood framing. It just sets an emotional tone. So if it's an uplift, or if it's a deep relax, or if it's creativity, by having a little bit of a musical tone helps to set an emotional vector to the theme of the session. Then there are brain wave signals that are embedded in the sound. And then there's the light. The analogy I give frequently, I apologize if you've heard it before, but I say that the NeuroVIZR is like a four-piece rock band, that the sound is like the drummer and the bass player.
Mm-hmm.
They hold shit together. They have some liberty, but not much. The light is like the lead guitar and the vocalist. They're in the context of the drummer and the bass player, but they have not only the liberty, but the duty to create complex expressions. Normally, if you're watching a band, the lead guitar and the vocalist are up front, and the bass is to the side, the drummer to the back. So why is that? Well, because. So the NeuroVIZR has that kind of premise that you want to give kind of gravity to the brain to hang in, and that's what the soundscape does. It's quite complete, but it doesn't have the complexity that the light has. And the light is really working the brain while the sound keeps the brain in the gym, if you know what I mean.
I
So
do. And some of
yeah.
your sets, I would swear in my mind, it's light coming from here in my brain, and sometimes it's here, and sometimes
Yeah,
it's, I know that might sound weird to somebody, but I
yeah.
literally almost feel like I'm seeing light coming through my
Mm-hmm.
skull, my brain. I don't know. My brain
Okay.
is bouncing it or something.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, I mean, I'm curious of this is like, why are some, when you say one is for deep sleep, do you want people
Mm-hmm.
doing this right before they go to bed,
Mm-hmm.
or many hours before they go to bed? And then how do you figure out a light pattern that would help me fall asleep and have better deep sleep, to which I do, by the way, when I wear
Mm-hmm.
my Aura ring. On the nights
Sure.
I do the
Yeah.
visor, I have more deep sleep, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
quite a bit of lucid dreaming. Also, I'm a lucid
Sure.
dreamer.
Well,
But
yeah.
I have more deep sleep than I do on the nights that I don't. So how do you know what type of light pattern helps the mind come down and go more into the preparation for sleeping, or one that is going to help me play my sport better, or run faster or something? Do you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's like,
Yeah, I
why? How do
do.
you
I do.
know?
How do I know? I don't know. I'm a lucky guy. I'm smart and I do research and I'm willing to take risks. And basically, it's like I live on a raft of blessings. I feel so. It's a mix, but okay, it's based on a premise. I do my best to integrate multiple perspectives of things that are known and to see where they mix and match.
Mhm.
I'm a principle oriented guy. I look for principles that once you see the principles, you can recognize them in other systems that overtly you wouldn't think have those principles. But hey, guess what? There's only one thing happening. So there have to be a small number of cohesive principles. Okay, so um, the concept medically that the adult brain is still capable of progressive positive neuroplastic changes is relatively new. Our medicine taught us the opposite for a long time. I think one of the responsibilities of science is for science to show or prove when science is wrong. So science is not always right. Science is progressive. And once in a while, our best science proves that some of our other science was wrong. And that happened with neuroplasticity. So,
Mhm.
I have a reasonably, kind of matured past with different concepts. And I thought, well, this neuroplasticity thing, I'm going to go for that. Let's see what we can do there. And, I'm well skilled and experienced, certainly of my sort of my age bracket with brain entrainment, the frequency following response. And I have a pretty good idea of what it's capable of doing, and I don't think it's capable of triggering efficiently neuroplastic change. And we could say why. We'll see if we get to that. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do my best to understand how does the brain learn, and is there a way of helping that learning using light and sound? And so I called it brain engagement, to engage, not to entrain, but to engage. And the thing about engagement is it relies on a quality of consciousness that we don't really even necessarily appreciate, but is precious. And that quality is called attention. What is this thing called attention? You've got to pay attention. May I have your attention, please? What is attention? And again, a preface that I frequently use: what do pain and pleasure have in common? I'll give.
It's what makes us react. It's what we live for. Pain and
Well,
pleasure. They're
yeah, but
both.
more specifically, I mean, more. Okay. At this point, it's funny to me, so I apologize. I'll give the example I give.
Yes.
Right now, imagine that I had an ice pick, if anybody knows what that is anymore. If I had a dagger and I snuck under your desk and I began to jab it in your left knee repeatedly. Or, and I don't mean to be rude or crude, but if somehow I didn't do it, but you had a really intense orgasm in your left knee.
Mm-hmm.
In both cases, what is common to those two?
Reaction.
No,
I react. I feel, I react. I don't know.
Your attention goes to your left knee.
Sure. Well, I guess what I attend to, I attune myself to, right? If I attend to it, I'll attune it. And that's neuroplasticity 101 in and of itself, right?
Well, it's attention. Attention is a primitive, primal, cosmic psychoactive agent. So let's introduce this term, a psychoactive agent. All psychedelic compounds are psychoactive agents.
Right, but not all psychoactive agents are psychedelics, right?
No, not all psychoactive agents are psychedelic compounds. Like, oh, wait a minute. Our brain is fundamentally designed to be activated into special states. And the most fundamental psychoactive agent is attention.
Yeah.
And for neuroplastic change, the initial trigger is attention.
And do you think that visual attention more than sound attention? Because I think to myself, I've done sound healing, sound baths, sound healing, and I have my friend Lloyd Leary, who is this fantastic sound healer, and he uses a gong and a didgeridoo, which or a Tibetan singing bowl, a metal singing bowl that has all of these tones and rich sounds in it, and I have witnessed so many transformative changes in people that I would say is very similar to using a psychedelic. You don't need to use mushrooms. You don't need to use MEO or DMT or something like that, right? But your whole body reacts because those vibrations are within us. We are vibrating beings. We are attuning our frequencies to the sound and to the light. And so I think that in some ways, that's what the NeuroVIZR and the music that you've created does, is it brings you into that altered state that's not waking, dreaming, the sub aspects of dreaming. It's somewhere in the in-betweens.
Yeah. Well, yes, to all that you said. To me, the yin and yang, as I mentioned, first language is a combination. Mechanical vibration is terrestrial because you need a medium to conduct the vibration. Right now, there's some amount of a mix of electronics and air vibrating between your vocal cords and mine and ears to ear. Electromagnetic radiation is solar. And, so here we are, the sun god Ra with Gaia, and we have sound and light. Of course, mechanical vibration has to be extremely potent because we're terrestrial. There's no sound in a vacuum.
Right.
Unless you have, a wire or a piece of wood or something. So it should not be a surprise to us as being nature. We're not in nature. That's a dumb idea. That we are nature and that we should be very susceptible to terrestrial vibration. I mean, duh. However, without light, the planet cannot exist. Biological growth will die out without radiation, light. When we look at our brain, a physical brain, there's more geography in the brain devoted to vision than any other experience. Like, oh, wait a minute here. So that's the solar aspect of our physiology.
So you're sort of saying that the light and the way that these flickering lights are coming into my brain is what is in fact producing the shapes, the designs. It's not the lighting that's doing it. It's my mind that's doing it, right?
And it's not even the psychedelic compound either.
Right.
There's a new field of what's called neuroanthropology. Very sexy stuff. I mean, for those of us that love our best shot at science. And, there are a number of leaders in the field, and they propose a construct, which is like really cool. They say that we have neurognostic structures in our brain. Gnostic, like mystic knowledge, right? Neurognostic structures. So it is the let's say ayahuasca, famous these days, everybody's crazy, or DMT, right? Those compounds trigger innate neurology and processes. They don't make the psychedelic experience. They trigger the psychedelic experience.
Right, they open the neural correlates, right? That's what they're doing. They're breaking through the or what we perceive as reality and opening up something deeper and more wise inside of our mind.
Yeah, I don't even think they're breaking through. I think it's just a room in the house that you don't go in very often, but it's not locked. It's not boarded up, because you can do it with thermal extremes. You can do it with fasting. You can do it with yogic meditation techniques. You can use it. A good punch in the nose will do it. I think one of the most attractive and intriguing psychoactive agencies that exists is this thing we call humor. Humor. I mean, if you laughing your ass off, tell me that's not an extraordinary state.
That's it. If people just laughed more, they would be more joyful. They would feel their bodies in a different way. Laughter is so critical. You're right.
Okay, so let's say I'm a stranger from a strange world, and I don't know what you humans call humor. And I'd say, can you please explain to me what it's like experientially to experience humor? What is funny? What's this thing called funny? How would you describe funny?
Yeah, what a great question.
Huh?
Yeah. Well, how do you define funny?
Funny.
Yeah, to an alien, they'd be, I think anybody might actually be a little stumped by that. Something that makes you giggle and I don't know. Yeah, that makes.
Tell me, come on. What's it like?
I don't know. It's such a great question.
Yeah. And yet it is psychoactive.
Sure.
It is a mind activating, shifting agency, and it's inborn in us. So, the definition, because I don't know, you probably do too, but there are a lot of brain theories and I like to study them. Predictive coding is one of them, very popular these days. So in that model, funny is described as a benign violation of expectation. Right? Benign because it's not hurtful, right. But you expect something and it violates your expectation, and that creates a kind of delight. It's like, you peek into something that you didn't expect, and that feeling can be horrible, by the way. You can be shocked by you expect something and you open up a drawer and it's a rattlesnake. It's like, whoa. But and then I think they say, the internet says, so it must be true, that a saying from Shakespeare is that a tragedy is a comedy misunderstood.
Mm.
So let's get back to neurognostic structures. I would say that humor, I mean, funny, and I mean like laugh your ass off funny, is an extraordinary state. And it's somehow enlightening. It somehow gives me a taste of a quality of truth that I really wasn't aware of until that novelty, that surprise hits me. The comic sets up the joke and the punchline is like, it's so delightful. So I build some qualities of benign violation of expectation into the NeuroVIZR. Every session is a story. Every session is a pre-verbal movie of experience, but precog and pre-verbal. It's like humor. When you see babies just giggling into heaven because of something the dog is doing, or the mother going boo 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 boo. Like, what's that? That is a peek into the divine. I think.
Yeah,
my
it's beautiful.
interpretation.
Yeah, it's kind of like the word time. If somebody says, "What is time?" because we use it in so many ways, and it's like I cannot remember who said it, but it's the sentence was something like, "I know what time is, but when you ask me, I don't." And it's the same thing. These things that are so obvious, but when you really want to define it, you can't. And that's a little bit like how it is when I use the NeuroVIZR. I can't really explain how it affects me, but I know that it does. And it really has a long lasting effect for me every time I use it. I find different states of being. I've even used it just in meditation and just focusing on breathing, and the way that the lights the different patterns for each type of music. It also seems like sometimes I feel like I see a similar pattern in one set than I do in one session than I do in another. But the way that they're put together seems very different every time to me.
Well, yep, that's true. The a kind of a bumper sticker, meaning very short phrase, is that the intent is to conjure a way of knowing without thinking. It's knowing without thinking. It's precognitive. It's pre-verbal stimulation of the brain. And fortunately, light and sound are well capable of doing that. The most evident is what we call music, which is the sound version of that. We've been able to create tools. Are you, I think, I don't know if people are, but generally there's a lot of attention given to Robin Carhart Harris, the psychedelic brain researcher, was in Imperial College in London. Now he's in University of California, San Francisco. And he has developed what's called the entropic brain model. It's not that he's studying psychedelics. He's studying the brain using psychedelics as a tool. So he has a premise, which I think is credible, that in the long evolution of our brain, there is a primary consciousness, a basically neurologically bottom-up neurological construct. And that experiencing that consciously is basically what we call now. The here and now. Here and now is just a metaphor. It's only a metaphor. it's a metaphor for a certain quality of consciousness, immediacy, pure presence. It's bottom up. The problem is that it's not organized in a way that we can use it very well other than be in the now, which is potent. So he calls that primary consciousness. And then developmentally comes the higher cortex and frontal and so on, so that the secondary consciousness is creating a library of what we call the past and having a crystal ball for what we call the predictive future. So the more developed brain uses the library of the past to predict a future, but it has no connection with the moment called now. It is literally a virtual projection of reality.
Yeah.
Literally.
And I mean, isn't that also, I always say to people, you know, your brain is really just like a 10-pound pile of goo inside your brain. I've done many dissections, and I'm always like, how can that be where all of this thinking comes from in the first place? It doesn't make any sense. But one thing I know about the brain is that it seems to have a hard time separating the past from the present, from the future. It actually almost in some ways doesn't know the difference, which is why people have PTSD, is sometimes in the present moment, I'm actually reacting to somebody because they are reminding me of some past experience, right? But my brain might as well be in that past experience, or you're talking about the same thing that happened again, and your body is actually, that your heart rate's coming up, you're starting to sweat, there's all this stress response coming out, and your body is actually secreting different hormones just from thinking about something that could have happened 25 years ago that you didn't like. But the fact that you're mentioning it now, it's recalled, and oftentimes with the same type of energy that it had before. It can really stop you in your tracks, and it can then inhibit you from leading the future, or vice versa. I have friends who will say to me, you know, as soon as I something, then I'll be able to do something. I'm like, oh my God, you're just like in a halo effect of living. You're like not even here. You're waiting for life to occur before you do something. You're missing the richness of this right here and now. And I actually think that's a lot of people in the world. They are not acting in a conscious state in the present moment. They're ruminating on the past, or they're fearful of the future, right? So this, to me, I think, is what bogs down the mind and takes away joy, takes away happiness, takes away humor, right? Takes away so much of how our brain works.
Yep. I mean, you know, I agree. And so now what do we do?
Yeah.
Would be a
So
good
now
question.
what?
Now what do we do? Like, oh shit, that's okay. I'll refer to Carhart Harris and then back to the NeuroVIZR quickly. In entropic entropy comes from physics and thermodynamics. He doesn't mean that stuff. Then there's informational entropy that comes from cybernetics. He doesn't mean that stuff. When he says the entropic brain model, entropy, neural entropy is when the brain temporarily sacrifices some degree of stability to move into higher states of flexibility. Okay. And that's one of the things that type of psychoactive agent called psychedelic compounds, they can do that. They can move you away from neural stability, predictability, into higher states of what's called brain signal variability or entropy, so that your brain interactions are more flexible and less predictable. So that's what psychedelics do. Well, that's what any psychoactive agent does, whether it does it quickly or slowly, short periods or long periods. And fundamentally, that's the design of the NeuroVIZR, that the NeuroVIZR is a way of tricking you into the present moment.
Yes, that's well said. It hijacks the past and it puts you right in the freaking here and now. That's a really great way to say it. That's it.
So neurologically, although it's an abstraction to separate them because our brain is integrated. But neurologically, the NeuroVIZR is primarily bottom-up sensory input, and secondarily, top-down neurological assessment and prediction. You can't separate them. You go into, Carl Friston and the boys and free energy theory and all of that. It becomes it's a fascinating model to work with. But if you think of anything that has an extraordinary quality, generally speaking, it's the immediacy of experience, that in that moment, suddenly you see clearly, or you understand, or it's hilarious, or you're deeply moved, or you recognize compassion, or whatever it is. The intellect can know about it, but never know it directly. It can only know about it.
Yeah.
Because it's pre-verbal, it's precog. It's at a rootedness neurologically, at least, if not other qualities. So my thought was, how can we get this in a more controlled fashion that has a short time span that can be repeated and also has a lot of set and setting variables baked into it? Because, if you do some DMT or psilocybin or something, like, you've got acceleration but no steering wheel. So right. Set and setting, all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, and your foot, the accelerator is taped down to the floor, and all you can do is hit the corners right. So because of reducing it back down to conceptualizing the number one, extraordinary states, or sometimes called non-ordinary states, or I don't like those because they build on negatives. It's like, extroverts are social, introverts are antisocial. Nothing, not antisocial. Why do you define the other as a negative all the time? Right. So I say non-ordinary. I just call it extraordinary. Yeah. It's ordinary plus. It's not like different. So the principle of psychoactive agency. Number one, why is that universal? Because our brains are made to do that. These states are normal, natural, and healthy. You don't use them very often because they're very high energy states. So high energy states are there. However, you have to use them judiciously because the brain is not designed to be at that level of processing, nonlinear, multifactorial information processing for very long periods of time. If you are, you're fucking nuts, pardon me. You're schizophrenic. So the idea is this range, number one, is normative, meaning that it's baked into your neurology and is a cardinal aspect of your psychology. You're not weird if you want to have a good time or have a deep insight or discover love. That's not weird. That's not weird. That's normal, natural, and healthy.
Yeah. I would wonder, my mom has bipolar disorder, and I watched her go through many bouts of delusions of grandeur where she...
And when they hit manic, don't they know everything?
Wow. I mean, it just is, you are just, and the thing is, it's mixed in with a little reality, maybe what she was watching on TV that day, could be current events and politics, and then stories. So if you didn't know her, you might actually think that she was really a lawyer, a doctor, drives a truck and runs and might run for president, and like all in the same conversation. You're like, wow. But then at some points she falls into this massive stupor and she can't get out of bed. And I wonder with the NeuroVIZR, for somebody who maybe is dealing with depression or bipolar disorder, do you look at this as perhaps being something that could change those brain states and bring them back to the present moment where things can change?
Yeah, I have 3 or 4 things to say about that. The first is, I really like talking with you. I really like being with you.
Thank you.
It's like,
me too.
Wow, it's really good. So first of all, thank you for that.
Of course.
That's a joy, right? It's an extraordinary experience.
Thank you.
The other thing is, Okay, I'm going to introduce a topic that is central to what I do with the NeuroVIZR, but frankly is not very well known yet in general neurology, even at a professional level. Or if they're aware of it, they really haven't spent time developing it. So let me give first an example: heart rate variability, right? This is like a big surprise. And it's pretty, it's generally known these days. Your Aura ring, I don't know how accurate it is, but okay, you can get that. So what's the thing there? And I'm going to apply this to the brain in just a moment. If your heartbeat is 60 beats per minute, right? There's an assumption, well, there are 60 seconds in a minute, and it's beat of 60, then it must be beating once every minute, once every second. That would be okay. And if that's true, you're on the verge of a heart attack. That we have been unsuccessful, although making effort, to apply mechanical physics to biological organisms.
Well said.
I want the cylinders in my car to be very regular, but my heart should not be that regular. So between each beat, there must be a differential period. The time has to be a little bit different, not because the heart is like poorly tuned, but it represents minuscule, critically important adjustments in the autonomic nervous system all the time. So what we say is, wow, if your heart rate variability is low, that's not so good. It should be high. That means your heart is highly adaptable in the present moment. Cool. Well, heart rate variability. What about brain signal variability? Oh, shit. Wait a minute. So this is the domain that I work in with the NeuroVIZR. So, okay, that's the general statement. Let's see, and this goes into bipolar and other things. I'd like you to imagine that your brain, mine too, is a 20-story building. You own the whole thing. And the lower floors work with very predictable, ordered activities. The highest floors work with very diffuse, liberal, flexible activities. And you have an elevator that goes up and down.
It's a good analogy.
So, right? So sometimes you need, right, regularity, order, predictability. Sometimes you need open-minded creativity, unexpected problem solving, and a great good time and have fun. So up and down. Now, that's your whole building. That's your whole brain. One of those floors is where you live, because the whole building is like a corporation or something like that. But one of these floors, that's where your bedroom is. That's where you kick back and chill. You don't have any specific task. It's an analogy, so there's no precise answer. But I have, what floor do you choose as home?
Probably one near the top, but not quite. Like maybe like the 13th floor that doesn't exist in most buildings.
Oh, okay.
Where I live.
You're such a witchy woman. Yeah. And the analogy is the floor is 15.
15. I was close.
Yeah. And the concept is that the set point
Mm-hmm.
for the brain needs to be closer to quick reactivity and problem solving and flexibility
Yeah.
than it is close to ordered predictability and habituation.
Yeah, I don't like order and predictability, actually. I mean,
Well, yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Without it, you'd be nuts on it. You'd be nuts.
I like some predictability, but I also like flying by the seat of my pants and just deciding, you know what, I'm gonna try this thing today, and just being like, that was awesome. So
I got it. That's because you're a twinkly-eyed witchy woman. I got it.
It's true. It is true. I have been called this before.
Okay, so I'm going back not specifically to your mother, but because of that concept. The manic, the polarity. Okay, these words are used in pathological definitions. I'm not using them like that. I'm using them more conventionally in terms of neurobehavior. The very bottom floor is autistic, and the very highest is schizotypic. So autism and like schizophrenic and autistic, and those pathologies are derived from these principles. That if a person is schizotypic, that means that it's too easy for them to shift out of ordinary into extraordinary. It's very easy for them to become delusional, or if you know the term apophenia, you know what that is?
No,
Okay.
what is that?
Okay. Well, apophenia is when, well, it's well known in a schizophrenic, is when a person sees patterns and relationships that actually don't exist. So there they are, they've got the newspapers on the wall and they've got all these pins and strings and they're connecting this number to this color and everything. So that's full schizophrenia, where it's very easy to become paranoid and, you know, that everything is a plot. So that's high level. That's when a person stays like on the penthouse way too long.
Gotcha.
And then at the other end, you have extremely highly ordered autistic behavior, where that individual, that brain, that mind, whatever, is clinging to repetition, predictability without interference at a pathological level. So we all have an elevator that goes up and down. We all have a floor that we live on. In advancing neurology, this whole thing is called criticality. Critical from physics, again, you know, mechanical physics, is that point when a phase shift happens, when water turns to ice, or ice to water, or water to vapor. That's the critical point. So criticality is this relationship of change. And, you know, what I say in general, my goal with the NeuroVIZR is based on a premise. The premise is a brain that can change when change is required is a healthy brain. That there is no idealized state, that you go from state to state. I mean, the most evident is you're awake and you're asleep. But then you have the 1,000 subsets of that where you need to change. So the concept with criticality is where you live, your default, it's a gorgeous term. It's the sweet spot of criticality. The sweet spot that your brain, your mind, I don't separate them, is positioned as a default that you can get in the elevator and go down. However, when you need to shift and change quickly for survival, most Darwinians say, that you're not too far away from that highly flexible state. So brain signal variability, the ability for brain behavior to shift and change, is my target with the NeuroVIZR. That I want a brain, my brain, to be selfish, I'd like it for my brain. I'm a nice guy. Your brain too, right? I would like our brain.
I was going to say, I want to have a good brain too.
I want it. Right? That's why I have an appreciation. I have a respect for brain entrainment. The frequency following response is a credible, useful discovery. However, it does not activate and promote and exercise and train our brain to change when it needs.
Right. So you're saying that, right, that the NeuroVIZR is kind of creating sort of a positive neuroplastic change so that the brain is more malleable and adaptable rather than so hardwired, right? That makes sense.
That's right. You know, that in some cases, you know, habit is notoriously time-bound to create and then a real bitch to try to change. So hopefully you have more good habits than bad habits. We would say good karma, not bad karma. So how do you change? Because every pronounced action is self-reinforcing. Every time you do it, it's a little easier to do it the next time. I was watching a little bit of table ping pong this morning on my, I don't know why, but you know, it's like, holy shit, how do you do that?
Yeah.
Well, that's a habit. So the issue, many techniques, and there are loads of them, of all sorts, are designed to make a change. What's the assumption? The assumption is the brain is able to respond to that technique and make a change. But that assumption is false in many cases, that the brain is highly habituated mean, talk to any golfer. You want to talk about superstitious people, the golf
Right.
swing, that the assumption is, oh, if I do this breathing technique, then I'm going to get this result. Well, technically, neurologically, that's true. However, the assumption is that my brain is ready, willing, and able to make that change. Sorry, no. I'd say that this is not, well, it might be a little bit true physically, but there's a kind of a glue in habituation. Synaptic neurotransmitter repetitions create a kind of a stuckness in our brain. Now, you want good stuck, but you don't want bad stuck. The problem is that we're stuck all over the place. Some people say in traditions, I've been, in spiritual traditions my whole life, at a certain point, you don't want to be stuck anywhere. But that's quite an advanced, concept that, habits, anyway, sidebar. But that appreciating, okay, this comes out of neurofeedback. I'm not a neurofeedback therapist, although I was trained in biofeedback and so on. I don't do that. I don't have the machines. I'm told, and also it's quite well known in research, that the discovery in neurofeedback is that many individuals have what's called fixated bands in their behavior. So
Right.
fixated or stuck, or I say glued because it's kind of an image. And also I'm told, plus I've read, that in conventional neurofeedback, and there are different theories, we know that, not only one, that it takes 10 to 30 sessions to get a person to move out of the fixated state. Well, that's just not practical. So that's just behaviorism and feedback verbally with the therapist. So there is a movement, multimodal intensive neurofeedback, where, again, I'm reporting this because I don't do it. We're over on the one side of the room. You've got your neurofeedback thing. They say, okay, screw that. Let's go to the other side of the room. I have a different machine there. And this machine, whether it's pulse magnetics or microcurrent, or in my case, light and sound, we're going to, pardon me, I'm pouring water.
Please.
Okay. I've got a giant cup of coffee, a half full, medium-sized cup of coffee, and I got to get some water happening here.
Perfect. I'm going to drink some water too.
Please do. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to focus this stimulation into this fixated band, and we're going to kind of scramble the eggs here. We're going to make it harder for your brain to stay in that state. So you scramble the eggs, and the full technique has 3 steps. Disconnect, that I just described. Reconnect is when you give it, you stop eating Twinkies and you start eating kale. So you disconnect, stupid analogy. You disconnect, and then right away, because the brain is always hungry for signal. It wants signal in noise. It wants pattern in confusion. You spin around, you want to stop spinning for the sake of gravity. So when you disconnect, when you scramble where that brain is stuck, you better have something to replace it right away. And hopefully that's the alternative that would be beneficial. So you disconnect. Then right away, you reconnect when the brain has an appetite. And then you reinforce what you reconnected. Disconnect, reconnect, reinforce. It's a very simplistic model. And this is actually, I have sessions in the app that focus on that, the disconnect, the dehabituators. However, saying that, in mind states and many of the other, because every purpose has a different design. It isn't just one design, although it has certain principles. In every session, there are elements of the disconnect, reconnect, and reinforce. That's one of the secrets in the design.
Is that kind of, because like I've never done microdosing. I have.
Correct.
I've tried mushrooms and things like this, and with healing sessions and stuff. But microdosing, I would imagine that some of the microdosing sessions, because you have them in after trauma, blockage, burnout, right? That's got to be a piece of this, yes?
Well, yes. And see, here's another thing that I don't know. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but there's the Microdosing Institute out of the Netherlands, Hein, and I'm working with him. and also Paul Austin that does Third Wave, a great organization. I'm beginning to work with him. And what we want to collaborate on, I'll be a course probably, but it's called the neurology of microdosing. It's taking microdosing as a concept away from the psychedelic compound, because the psychedelic compound is just a particular low dose psychoactive agent.
Right.
Okay, the microdosing effect can be easily reconceptualized as a low dose controlled psychoactive agent creating phasic neuroplastic change over time. That's what microdosing is. So if you take away the compound and introduce some other controlled low dose psychoactive agent, it's the same neurological principle. The microdosing is not effective because of the compound. That's not what it is. If you go back to Hans Selye, you go back to Donald Hebb, you go back to these, landmark things. One of the things that, Selye came up with, of course, he's got his general adaptive thing. That's not the point. He said the organism is not ready to recognize every single stressor that can possibly happen on the planet. It's not the type of stressor, it's the degree of stress.
Yes.
That's what the body responds to. And then we get into hormesis and that thing. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful stuff here. But so, now we use the word stress and it's always negative. Selye sort of lost the game because he said, wait a minute, stress is wonderful. Stress is life.
Yes, stress. Yeah, you can't get around it. I mean, the second you wake up in the morning, there's stress. Your cats, your dogs, your children, your wives, your husband, your partners, everything's all stress.
Okay.
Life is stress.
Not that. Stop it.
You can't get out of it, dude.
Okay.
It's like everything is
if you
stress.
take away the word stress and insert stimulation.
Right, exactly.
Okay, there is stimulation. Then he said there is eustress, not like me and you, but EU, like euphoria from the Greek. There is eustress and distress. And it's not the type that makes it eu or dis, it's the degree.
Right, it's the volume. Degree. You turn it up or you turn it down. Right, exactly. Well, there's all sorts of levels of it, right? I mean, stress is not a constant state of being. It's waves. It's waves.
Well, just call it stimulation. Don't use the word stress anymore.
Okay,
and that helps because there is positive stimulation and there is negative stimulation. Typically, it is the degree. So in microdosing, you take a stressor, aka a psychedelic agent, and you take it all the way down so that it's provocative, but not too demanding. So this is, again, neurologically, this is brain priming, where you prime the brain. There are 6 different ways, 6 different classes of brain primers. One of them happens to be pharmaceutical. Another one happens to be through the senses. You can see the comparison. So you bring a very low level of provocation, a very low stimulation that requires an adaptive change. It requires a response. And the response basically is to move from a low order up to a more dynamic flexibility, but a little bit. It is a form of neuroplastic modification. And you do it incrementally, bit by bit, bit by bit. And if you're going to lift weights and you can only lift 20 kilos, okay, next day, 21 kilos. And you do that for, say, a week. And then you go to 22 kilos. That our brain is physical. It's physical. Everything we know about the soma generally includes the brain. For some reason, we separate it. So microdosing, if you can think of it, is a controlled, low-dose, incremental neuroplastic process to move the brain towards more positive habituation. That's what it is.
Okay, so here's a question for you. So when people are studying this kind of stuff, I would think to myself, do they hook up something so that they can see what happens inside the brain now that we have this technology to be able
Hmm.
to see what areas of the brain light up? I know that Dr. Amen, who, deals with depression and things, when he's looking at, or, looking at people's
Yeah.
brains, certain areas just do not fire. They are just
Hmm.
almost like a dead area. It looks like
Yeah.
a piece of
Yeah.
Swiss cheese, right? Instead of a nice
Yeah.
block of solid cheese. So have you taken
We are
science?
doing.
Yeah, have
We
you
are.
taken have you taken brain imaging while somebody is using the NeuroVIZR to see what's happening in the brain? Or is it really just that from person to person, it's going to be so different that there's no level form of measurement? Because I think that you must run into, uh, you know, arguments with scientists, because any innovator, as far as I know, will always come
Sure.
up against somebody saying, prove it. And they say, if you can't
Hmm.
measure it, it doesn't exist, or that's a
Yeah.
scientific thing, right? So that's
Sure.
why in
Sure.
my field of fascial science and research, people are like, that
Yeah.
stuff is a bunch of hoo-ha, you can't measure it. I'm like, well, they're measuring it now, so stop calling it hoo-ha. So I'd be curious,
Uh-huh.
if in the mind, can you measure through what you see in brain imaging what occurs with the NeuroVIZR?
That's a long question. The short answer is yes.
You can.
Yes. Three letters,
And,
which is
and is
one
it
more than
different?
no.
Could it be different from person to person? Because if each person, I think each person's experience might be different with the NeuroVIZR. Although I've had friends listen to the same thing, do the same thing, and tell me what you see. And many of the things that they see, I see also. Like my brain produces those same things, feeling like my eyes are being washed, all of a sudden seeing sacred geometry, or this one specific line that goes like this through my brain, and then it goes this way, and then I kind of
Yeah.
watch it disappear. If I squeeze my eyes and then I stop,
Sure.
it changes everything. So
Sure.
my
Yeah.
brain is having a ball with the NeuroVIZR, but I couldn't tell you what it's really doing. But again,
Okay.
like, if you can image it, what are you discovering with imaging? Anything like that you go,
Okay.
wow, I didn't realize that would have happened.
Yes.
I love this.
And let me take a shot at a longer answer than yes. Okay.
Okay. Although yes
Um,
really answers a lot.
well, it's different than no.
Right.
We are, as a company, a relatively new company, and the device itself is also, relatively new. So, on the capitalist side of things, there are budgets and expenditures and what you spend your money on, and how much of that money do you spend on research. And so we have been tiptoeing. We have informal, and if anybody wants to see a very authoritative, professional, honest, well balanced, check out Cody Rawl on his YouTube channel. If you know Cody, ex Navy MD psychiatrist who's devoted the past 10 years in private practice studying neurotechnology in the brain.
Hmm.
So Cody, CODY,
Mm-hmm.
Rall, RALL, based out of Vegas, Cody Rall, and Psych for Tech or something. He's a real pro, a very, very ethical guy, very well balanced. And he has done 3 different videos now that include the NeuroVIZR. And shoot, 3 days ago, published one comparing the BrainTap device with the NeuroVIZR device. So if you'd like to see highly credible but informal research, because he'll do brain, EEGs and show what's going on and give his impression and opinion. That's there, and it's a great resource. And he's reliable. He's a third party. Um, we've done a short observational study in Southern California, beginning of last year, 23, and just about 10 days ago finished one in Eastern Europe that is quite uh, insightful. I won't go through the whole thing; it takes a long time. But we studied two people at the same time that happened to be jazz musicians. So we were wondering, if both of these people experienced the same NeuroVIZR session in exactly the same time, what's happening in their brain? So what we found was that the NeuroVIZR session certainly the brain became involved right away, and the way the brain became involved on each person had some similarity, but then differences. On the drummer, because we were studying what's called hyperscanning. I don't want to go like all over the place here, but hyperscanning is well known, where there is this study of more than two or more brains in a task, and whether there is inter-brain synchronization, where the brains neurologically become synchronized. And this has been most studied, and we did it here too, with jazz musicians when they leave the score and they improvise. Right? So when they say, okay, now let me roam and interpret and be, do that and do it together. Jazz improvisation. Very cool stuff. So we saw a bunch of things. One was that the brain of the drummer moved up into higher brain signal variability, above a standard norm for that person. The saxophone player moved up and then down and sort of clung in and around a more habituated state, so a lower brain signal variability. So they adjusted individually. It's a kind of adaptogenic response.
I totally get that. And I tell you what, Garnet, I have a Opus bed. I think I had maybe mentioned this to you. The Opus bed uses sound and body vibration. You lie down on it. It has 7 chambers and it goes through it. Well, if I put the NeuroVIZR on and I listen to their music and their vibration, that NeuroVIZR and what I see completely changes. And it is, that's why I know for certainty my body, my mind, my whatever it is in me is producing what I perceive through vibration and through transmission of vibration through that light. And it is mind-blowing. Like the two of y'all got to get together, and in his collaboration sessions, you have to have a collaboration. I try my best to find anything that's close to 11 minutes on his, but the 20-minute sessions are it. But it really, I totally get that, how even somebody who's musical, that they would use different, I guess, availability in their mind to produce whatever they see. I mean, it really kind of makes, it makes perfect sense to me.
Okay. I agree. I'm going to continue because it gets better. It gets better. Okay. So we do that. Then, because we had pre-tested, this is full rigs, 32 electrodes, the whole like science lab thing happening. We had already tested them in their ability to generate higher levels of inter-brain synchronization. We tested them. Then we do a 11-minute NeuroVIZR session, and what happened I just explained. Then we say, okay, now go ahead and play and improvise together. We do several 2-minute sets. And even though the drummer had a certain response related to the saxophone player, their ability to generate interbrain synchronization increased. So by having each of them respond adaptogenically, as opposed to enforcing a state, like brain entrainment, I want to make you this. No, we're not doing that. We're going to create a vector of probability here. And how well can you respond? So it's crazy, beautiful. Not only because, when in jazz, like musical improvisation, there's a groove, there's a feeling, there's a psychological state when they find each other. And it's not intellectual. It's somehow out of time and place. It's just there's creation in the moment, and they're sharing that. It turns out that that psychological groove is also a neurological state, and you can measure it. And you can see that the interbrain synchronization is increasing at the same time intra-brain synchronization, meaning how you habitually relate to yourself decreases. So you literally become more open-minded to be able to improvise with that other player. I'll go more crazy ass stuff. A person listening.
It's mind-blowing.
A person listening, even blindfolded, if they quote unquote, if they feel the groove, they're not playing the instrument. Their brains become more synchronized with the musicians.
Wow. Whoa.
And the increase in adaptive patterns is predominant in the right hemisphere. So we just did that. And now let's extrapolate. What would it be like, let's say, in marriage counseling, where here are the parties, and the therapist says, okay, first of all, let's do this NeuroVIZR session, and let's see if we can start to find common ground in our mind by actually neurologically making it easier for them to improvise in the session as one mind. Many brains become one brain. Many minds become one brain. How about team building? How about C-suite corporate think tank? How about
athletes?
Athletes.
And
how
on a
about
sports team?
How about group chanting?
Yeah.
How about that? I have a premise. It's not mine, but I like to say it. That communication is not about sharing a concept. Communication is about sharing a connection.
Yes.
Right now, I don't have, but my cell phone, I can't talk to you on my cell phone without having a connection. So if I don't connect with you, because I think you and I connect, I feel connected with you. And it's very easy to share concepts. You start to say something and I can finish the sentence sometimes, and vice versa. Why? Because there's a connection.
Yeah.
And that connection is not just, energetic or esoteric. It's not even just psychological, not even it's actually at the very same time, neurological. It's neurological.
Frequency.
Okay. I have to say something about frequency.
Tell me.
It's dangerous. Right now, I think we're in this flow, not the word, a tendency to just advance the magic pill delusion into the magic frequency delusion.
Well, yeah. And I think we're in like a psychedelic renaissance right now where it seems like, and maybe it's just on my Instagram page, but there's a lot of stuff that's out there where I'm like, oh, well, it's not all vibration and frequency. You got to we have to maybe take a half a step back, but I get it. I feel you. I know what you're going to say here.
Well, okay. How about all frequencies are vibration, but not all vibrations are frequencies?
Well, that's like the periodic table is some sort of a frequency, right? Everything on that periodic table has a frequency. Can I say that?
Let's define what's a frequency. What's a frequency?
Frequency. You tell me. You're the smart one.
No, I'm not the smart one. I read some stuff that a frequency is an oscillation that has regular periodicity.
Okay.
So. But not every vibration is periodic. Some are aperiodic. Is a bunch of scrambled eggs. And our brain is a mix of periodic and aperiodic oscillations. This is, this whole thing, everybody's, like crazy about 40 hertz right now. Guess what? There is no 40 hertz in the brain.
That's like noise, isn't it? 40 hertz sounds like noise to me.
No. 40 hertz is what I call, I like to poke around a little bit, so a little bit of fun. But that 40, a whole number, an integer brain frequency, 40 hertz, is a mathematical lie of convenience. Because in that range, like how many decimal points are you throwing away here? You're just, what you put EEG on the head, and it's a volcano of data that comes out. And the algorithm makes it into something that we want. We designed the algorithm to say, if it's 40.773222 or 38.776 or 39. Like how many decimal points? Most of them never go beyond 2 decimal points. Like, shit, it doesn't matter. Of course it matters. And then the other thing is just give me the average. Anything that is pretty much close to 40, we'll call that 40. And the ones that are aperiodic, that's noise. But this is the thing, that brain signal variability is saying that shit that you call noise is actually critical information. It's just too complicated for you. So you pretend it's not there. We'll just call that 40. We'll call that 10. Hey, that's what your algorithm is reporting. And if I look outside and you say, what's the weather? I'll say, pretty good. So, there's a danger now in this, that like when we communicate frequencies to the brain, I have 2 things to say. One is, again, I think it's kind of funny, but it's kind of stupid. Right now, I am going to talk to Sue, and I am going to talk about a big black dog, and the dog is eating bananas. Now, you understand everything because of symbolic signaling, but it sounds weird because we don't talk like that. I think most of our communication to the brain right now, the brain is going, I know what you're saying, but why are you so weird? Why are you so weird?
I think my brain says that a lot when I talk to people.
Okay, so here's an example from music.
That's my inside voice, by the way. I don't say it out loud.
No. Listen, you don't believe in inside outside, do you? I mean, really?
Right.
No, stop that. Anyway, okay, music and instruments. First of all, there was no saxophone music before the saxophone instrument, right? I mean, the artist, the musician had a feeling that they had a stupid trumpet or a flute or something, and they wanted something guttural, something like in your belly, kind of like sexy, sensual, like a growl. So Adolphe Sax, I think it was 1754, if I remember, said, well, let me just bend this thing and get it. Okay, so instrumentation makes a big difference. So right now, music has evolved quite, beautifully. And now electricity lets us create electronic instruments and synthesizers. We couldn't do that before. It was only mechanical vibration, wind and strings and the whole thing. So on the early synthesizer, you could say, oh, I want to choose violin, and you had a keyboard. You didn't have a violin, but you're going to make a violin sound. What was the problem? It sounded something like a violin, but it didn't really sound like a violin. Why? Too perfect. No violin sounds like that. There are all sorts of distortions and harmonics. So now, now it's so advanced, it's called humanizing, where there's a fuzzy range of deviation that makes that violin electronic sound pretty much like a violin, but it still isn't humanized to enough where there are subtle errors. Miles Davis said there is no wrong note. It just depends on what note follows it. So what we're doing in music is realizing, no, it's got to be dirty. It's got to be noisy. It has to be slightly aperiodic at times. The drum machines, they're amazing, but there's something weird. Why? Because they're too perfect. No human can be that perfect rhythmically. And that's part of the charm. When like in plastic surgery with the face, freaky things, when the face through plastic surgery becomes too symmetrical, it looks weird because there's no human on earth that has a perfectly symmetrical face. So right now, as we begin to work with, there are 2 points here. One is the concept that there are discrete whole number brain frequencies is a mathematical abstraction. Our algorithms report it that way. But that's not the truth. So this is where brain signal variability comes in, like heart rate variability. We would just assume that 60 beats or 72 or whatever your heart rate, that it's evenly divided, is purely periodic. No, it's not. Organisms live in high states of incremental adaptation all the time. Every system is like that. Any, what I'll call biological system, is like that. But we want it to be purely Euclidean and Newtonic and whole integer. And we want that. Why? Because it's just easier.
Yeah, because people like things that are easy.
Yeah. So, but guess what? That doesn't sound like it's kind of violinish,
right.
But it doesn't sound like the real violin. So we are at a stage now where, music, muse, from the concept of, the muse, the inspiration, musing, there goes funny again. What's musing? That's funny. Wait a minute. But anyway, because we're terrestrial, we've been able to create musical tools or instruments that capitalize on mechanical vibration. Now we're at a stage of technology. I don't know about ancient civilizations, whatever, but now we're at a point where we have the technology, the saxophone, that can be able to explore light as music. So music is not only sonic, it's also radiant. And what took us 30 years with electricity and sound, we'll be able to achieve in 2 to 3 years with light.
Wow.
That's where we are right now.
Yeah.
When you look at music in general and you look at concerts, they're increasingly theatrical. Usually at concerts, the music is shit quality compared to studio recordings. But why? You go there for the experience. And much of that experience is visual. We have an appetite for that. Where does that appetite come from? In our brain. Our brain wants that type of stimulation. And guess what? We can do that, even with your eyes closed, because it's a kind of a Morse code, that there's information in there. And how we compose, I call it light choreography when it comes to music, which, by the way, the NeuroVIZR, don't tell anybody, but in 2025, we have a new product line. But don't tell anybody.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask you if you could discuss any upcoming projects or innovations that you're super excited about.
Yeah. We are going, there's wellness with the NeuroVIZR, and then there's entertainment. We call it our Trojan horse, entertainment for a change. That we're plotting high-level, immersive, light and sound musical entertainment that can also be converted into healthy wellness brain signaling.
I love that.
Yeah, me too.
It sounds like you've got so many things. And I mean, I want to be mindful of your time, because I feel like I've usurped all of your morning, and I'm sure that your coffee is cold.
Sue, 3 hours is my warm-up period, so don't feel anything for me.
You're like me. I mean, like we could
is in 3 hours. So I respect your time.
I feel like I could talk to you forever, and I feel like I have probably 20 million other questions, but I think maybe
I have an idea.
Yeah,
we can do this again.
Yeah, let's do a part 2
okay,
because I have to get through I want to get through all of the song lists. Like there's some that I'm like, do I need to do that one? Not today. And then I'll be like, I'll try another one. And there's some that I really love. I love Your Better Sleep, because I think that, excuse my French, but we are fucking up our circadian rhythm in this world. I think the way people use their phones up until the moment they go to bed, and then they're like, I can't fall asleep or stay asleep. I'm like, no crap, you had your freaking phone like this for a half an hour just before you went to bed. And we're just so inundated with light. I think we're sleep deprived. We're darkness deprived. We don't We don't sleep in the right climate. We don't have, I do evening rituals to settle
Mm-hmm.
yourself into sleep, and seeing that it is almost my bedtime here.
Oh, really? Oh, I forgot about that. I'm full of morning energy and caffeine. So
Indeed, indeed.
it's
But
like, come on, Sue, come on, Sue,
I
come on, Sue.
I love the opportunity that you're saying that I will get a part two of this conversation, because there's so many more things. But let's do this. I want to end on this. I ask this question to everybody that comes on Anatomical Gangster, and I'd be
Uh-huh.
curious what your answer is. So here's my question to you, Garnet.
Sure, sure.
If you could tell somebody something that you know, or something that you've learned in your life that most people don't know anything about, but if they did, it could very well change the course of their entire life and how they think about life itself, what would it be?
Yeah. Um, Explore or get help in learning how to deep consciously relax.
Mm.
Yeah. Deep, not just deep relaxation where you go bye-bye. Keep on doing this thing called relax, like whatever that is, and stay lucid. Because my perspective is that deep conscious relaxation is not the goal, but it's definitely the gateway.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's a right there. I think when people start talking about biohacking, I think that that's where it is. That's where biohacking is at its best, is in that state of
I
conscious.
have a horrible, funny thing to say about biohacking.
Tell me.
I've said it before, so like the target's already on my back. My definition, it's supposed to be funny, but there's something about funny where there's this little bit of truth. My definition of biohacking is social media supported, technically advanced narcissism.
That's awesome. Because that's it, is everybody's biohacking. I was like,
Me,
look,
me,
if you
me, me,
take
me, me,
hormone
me.
replacement therapy as biohacking, anything that biologically alters your state of being could be a biohack. So it seems to
Yeah,
me that it's just a marketing ploy, is it not? So I think you've just nailed it. That's perfect.
I know. It's you got to be a little bit of a bad boy. I mean, if that's the extent of my bad boyness, it's pretty lame. But anyway,
Nah,
there you
you
go.
know, I mean, I just so appreciate just your openness and your thinking out of the box. And I think, some of us just at a very young age were either, I think maybe it's just we're born that way, but just constantly asking questions, or seeing things that maybe people don't quite see. And
Hmm.
I think that's what sparks the curiosity to continue to just learn and learn and learn. I feel like in my lifetime, I am already in my 50s, and I'm like, damn, there's just not going to be enough time unless I live till I'm 150 to learn everything I want to learn. I always think, should I go back and get a PhD or a doctorate in something? And maybe then somebody will take me seriously. But then I think, no, I don't even give a shit. Let everybody like I don't really care.
Yeah,
I can't
I
even
don't care.
care. I'm just gonna have
Yeah,
to learn on my own. I'm a voracious reader, and I see it right up here. The I Am That book by Maharaja, and
uh-huh.
Waking Dreaming Being by Evan Thompson, or Ramana. What is his
Yeah,
name? Ramana Maharishi,
yes,
in his
yeah,
collected works, Seeds of Consciousness. I mean, every time I read another book, I just think to myself, everybody who thinks that they have something new, spend 5 minutes reading somebody who's studied Buddhist practices, and you'll realize that it's not new. There's nothing new about consciousness either. Consciousness has been around long before physicists were thinking about it. So these kind of ideas to open up these neural correlates of the mind, to get us thinking in a different way, to see the world in a more joyful state, and to laugh more. I think people need to smile a little more. I think sense of humor is, we're always so afraid now of hurting somebody's feeling. And I think to myself, well, I got to learn how to change my words then, because a
yeah,
lot
yeah.
of the stuff I say is probably outdated by now, right?
Well, what you think about me is none of my business. It's okay.
That's it, right? It's
And the last
exactly
thing
it.
is, hey, my first meditation teacher was a horse.
That's awesome.
We'll pick that up in our next podcast. How's that?
I love it. Well, you know what? If you grew up on a farm, I totally get it, because I can say in all of the years when I would ride horses, I was at one with the universe and feeling completely at peace. And that, I think, is
what's with it with you women and your horses? My
They-
sister had the horses. I grew up at the shovel end because I was the younger brother.
Oh no, I only got to ride the horses because my friend had a stable, and the only way, because we couldn't afford riding horses, but if I
Sure.
shoveled the shit, then I could ride the horses. And so I thought
Okay.
it was a good payoff to be able
Okay.
to do it.
All right.
I
Then
love
you
it.
earned your ride. You earned your
Indeed.
ride.
Indeed.
Okay.
Well, Garnet, I mean, first of all, my deepest appreciation for everything that you've done to open my eyes to this incredible device, and for somehow popping on my radar. Big shout out to Billy, who told me about it. And,
Yeah, thank you,
now
Billy.
I just want to learn as much as I can. I hope to at some point meet you in person. I'm certain it will happen. And I
Okay,
am
that
going to
would be
take you up on that offer of having a part 2 of this conversation
okay.
after I've tooled around with this. I've only listened to about maybe 20, 25 of the sets. And so I feel like I've got a whole lot more to go. So yeah.
Hey, all good.
Indeed. Indeed. Well, I hope you have a wonderful morning out there. And for everybody listening to this podcast, I hope that you enjoyed it, and that you follow this and you click subscribe and you tell everybody about this, and you go check out that visor, because if you are looking to expand your mind, I find this device something that will do it. So I hope that you guys will all do that. Be
Okay.
well to everybody at Garnet. Thank you so much for being part of
Okay.
the
Sue,
Gangster.
Floridian Witchy Witch, beautiful lady. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, if that wasn't a mind-blowing conversation, I'm not sure what is. I could have talked to him for another 3 hours. He just has so much to talk about. I hope that you guys will check out the NeuroVIZR. And of course, remember, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and I'll be back next week with another enlightening conversation with another anatomical gangster, somebody who's brilliant, who's breaking down complicated topics to help all of us live a more abundant life. Thanks again for being part of the conversation.